So what happens when it's the anxious partner that actually ends the relationship with the avoidant? It can happen. Most of the time, it is the avoidant that ends the relationship, but sometimes it is the anxious partner. A secure person generally will not have a long-term relationship with an avoidant because when the avoidant starts to pull away and neglect their wants and needs, the secure person will quickly hold boundaries and the relationship generally will come to its natural conclusion. But sometimes an anxious partner can be the one to dump the avoidant. This is usually after a prolonged period of time where the anxious person's needs and wants are just not being met. They're being met with fierce resistance. That's what's happening. The avoidant is distancing. They are stonewalling, even gaslighting, doing all sorts of deactivation strategies to avoid emotional intimacy. And eventually, the anxious person can reach their breaking point and they can end the relationship altogether. It's a very difficult thing for an anxious person to do because one of their biggest fears is losing the relationship. So for it to get to that point, it usually takes a lot. And then the anxious person can really struggle with guilt, self-blame, feeling like they hurt the other person, that they let them down, feeling selfish for ending the relationship. Anxious people often prioritize other people's wants and needs while neglecting their own. This goes back to childhood when the anxious person learned that they're responsible for everybody else and that their feelings didn't really matter, but they needed to make sure that everybody else's were taken care of. This is the result of growing up with parents or caretakers that were inconsistent in their love, a lot of volatility. So the anxious person learns to manage their environment and takes responsibility for everybody else's feelings, wants, and needs while neglecting their own. In the relationship, the anxious person will generally struggle to hold boundaries with the avoidant because of fear of losing the relationship, not wanting to lose this person that they've grown to love so dearly. Because early in the relationship with the avoidant, the connection and the chemistry was out of this world. The anxious person felt like they finally were seen. They were finally heard. They met their twin flame. But then, as emotional closeness began to grow, the avoidant pulls away, and they do all these deactivating, distancing behaviors. And this situation can drag out to the point where the anxious person actually feels like they had no choice but to end the relationship. At first, when they end the relationship, the avoidant will feel a sense of relief because they're no longer being pressured to be anything for their partner in the relationship. They're no longer feeling pressured to be emotionally available or emotionally present in the relationship. But now being dumped can actually be a big wound to the avoidant. They can say, well, look, see, abandonment was inevitable. It was going to end. I'm not enough. But ultimately, the avoidant thinking this way, the avoidant in their own insecurities is not your responsibility. You didn't create this person's childhood attachment wounds. You're not the person that put these insecurities into them. And unfortunately, if they are unwilling to actually self-reflect and take accountability for the failure of the relationship, if they're not willing to see what they did wrong and where they could improve, that is not your responsibility because you can't fix this person. If you stood up for your own wants and needs and you did hold boundaries, that is a very secure thing to do. Unfortunately, you can't be responsible for how this person receives it. If you ended the relationship in a kind and empathetic way, but a firm way, saying that my wants and needs weren't being met and this relationship is not working for me, don't beat yourself up. Don't blame yourself. You weren't being selfish. You were being secure because a secure person recognizes their worth and recognizes that their own wants and needs truly do matter in the relationship. So don't beat yourself up. Yes, the avoidant can feel a sense of relief, but that sense of relief doesn't last forever, and then they can really start to get into their own head and think to themselves, well, see, nobody loves me, I'm not lovable, I'm meant to be alone, and generally those kind of negative thought processes. But that is the avoidance responsibility. It is their responsibility to heal and to self-reflect in a healthy way. You can't force this person to. However, on the flip side, Sometimes this can be the wake-up call that the avoidant needs. When they lose a relationship with a person that they genuinely love and genuinely care about, it can be that splash of cold water on the face that helps this person get to the point where they're willing to self-reflect and change. When the pain of the consequences of their actions is so profound that the pain of self-reflection is less. That's the point. That's the rock bottom where they can actually begin to do some serious work on themselves. Now, everybody has a different rock bottom. Some avoidants never actually get there. But holding your boundaries with the avoidant, ending the relationship when it's not meeting your needs, don't beat yourself up for that. You certainly weren't being selfish. And you did not cause this person to distance. You didn't cause this unhealthy behavior. Sometimes the avoidant will pull away so much that they actually hope that you end the relationship. That way they're not the bad guy. And if you eventually pulled the trigger, you're only giving them what they essentially were looking for. So don't beat yourself up for that either. But do pat yourself on the back as hard as it is for standing up for your own wants and needs. There's nothing selfish about that. Recognizing your own worth and recognizing that you deserve a partner that's willing to invest in you in return is a healthy, secure thing to do.